Hi folks, Marty here, and today we're going to take a look at how to quickly get a character, or if you need something in your painting but you're having difficulty drawing or getting the scale, and maybe you don't feel your drawings quite cutting it. Well, here's an easy solution for you. I mean, there's lots of ways you can do this, but if you want to do something that's very quick and saves you a lot of faffing around, this is probably the quickest way to do it. So here is a little picture we're going to tackle today. It's just a wee quick sketch. It's going to be a snow scene, so I'm going to be showing you how to do snow as well in this here. So it's going to be one of those lessons that has a little so many lessons within the one. The first thing is getting the sketch done. So once you've got your sketch done, and just say there's you wanted to put another sheep or a wee man in it or something like that, well, if you have any photographs or you have a picture from sites that have royalty-free stuff and you want to avail of that, get a picture of it onto your device. There's two ways you can do this. You can either print it out. The problem with printing it out is you might not get it the size you want, and you could end up, if you wanted another sheep in here, you could end up with this huge big sheep. It just looks disproportionate to the rest of the picture. So it doesn't always work. You'd end up wasting a lot of print paper. I find this kind of method that I'm going to show you now works quite quick. So first of all, you need either a pen or a sharp pencil. You want it to be kind of a hard pencil to begin with. Now, when you're going to do this next method I'm going to show you, don't be digging in too hard. It's a bit of a cheat, really. I'm going to use my iPad, but what I want to do first, I want to establish what size of the sheep that I need. So I need something that's going to be around about the size of this one that I already have here, and I'm going to maybe put this next sheep around about here. So what I do is I quickly mark out the head and the head to the feet, so to speak, right? And then once I've done that, I get my device okay, and then what I do is I get the piece of paper and turn your brightness up the full way here, okay? So then you get your piece of tracing paper on there. Now the difficulty you're going to find here is trying to not have the image move around underneath you. But so with your pencil, just if you hold this with a couple of fingers as steady as you can, and then just draw around the outline of the particular object that you need. So basically that has just given us a basic outline. So it's all about scale. That seems to be the issue that we all have. So once you've done a basic outline, this is a lot easier when you're actually doing this without having a video of what you're doing. So if you're trying this at home, okay, so it'll be a lot easier, but just get your pencil and fix up any bits that need fixed up. Fill in the blanks, so to speak. Okay, so that's kind of close enough there. And then we'll give him a wee happy face. Any bits that need just touched up there. Okay, because this is going to be a snow scene, the legs are going to be, or the feet, the hooves, they're going to be buried in the snow. Okay, so that's given us our rough outline. So what we need to do now is you need to write on this front. Okay. If you have a pen is sometimes easier because you can dry the pen off and it's not going to smudge all over the place on you. So what you want to do now is you want to get a soft leaded pencil. This is a mechanical pencil, but you can use an ordinary wooden pencil. And then, so now we're at the back of it. So what you do now is then you go over that outline with your pencil. So this is a great method if you're in the middle of a drawing and you need something that's pretty accurate without having to go through a whole lot of trouble with printers, and you know what printers are like for playing up. But if you have a device, or even a laptop or a computer or anything like that. Okay, so now you just position that shape wherever you want it. So if you look around the page, I've turned it back round to the front now, okay? So it's just a case of picking where you want it. You can have it down here. Maybe this shape's a bit closer, he's a wee bit more curious. Okay, so once you do that, you just get a round object. You could use the back of, or the bottom end of one of your brushes if you like. And so what you do then is you just gently rub around that. That's why if you do it in pen at the front, it's cleaner, less mess. So make sure you just get all the line of that. This reminds me of years ago when we were kids. I used to get these like transfers that came with packets of sweets, and they were like fake tattoos, and used to have to rub them on. Okay, so you see the way this is giving me the faint outline that I need, and that's all that's necessary. So what you would do now is then we get our pencil now, and then you're still looking at your reference image, by the way, through this here, just to make sure that you're hitting it right. I could have went a lot harder on that, and then you're just filling in those lines there. So this is a great way if you know, you want to get down to the painting without the whole hassle of sketching. I mean, it's great to know how to sketch and all the rest of it, but not everybody has had the luxury of knowing how to sketch. I mean, I've been sketching all my life, and not a lot of people, you know, have been doing that. They've come to maybe art kind of late on, you know. So it is good to learn how to handle a pencil and to draw. Of course it is. But sometimes you just, you know, you want a frustration-free painting session. Do you ever sit down, you're ready to paint, and then all of a sudden you need to do some last minute thing, and then you just lose that creative urge? Okay, that's not too bad. And they don't have to look like photorealistic sheep, you know. And then put a wee bit of snow where he's standing in the snow there. And this is one over here, and he's a bit cold, so he's going to go and put his winter coat on. So he's over having a chat with the farmer here. Okay, so there's our wee sheep in the foreground. Of course, a lot of things depend on, if you get a good reference image, you're laughing, but if you're having to make it up on the fly, sure. If they look like wee happy characters, you know, go with it. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do another wee snow scene. We're going to keep this very, very basic again. We're going to stick to our cobalt blue and burnt sienna. We might throw in a bit of yellow ochre or raw sienna, depending on which one you have, and we'll just see how we get on. But we'll see. We'll play it by ear. So I hope you can see that clear enough there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the sky first. Okay, this is going to be quite an overcasty kind of day. You know, there's a lot of greyish kind of clouds here, and you're probably wondering what this wee strip is down here beside me. This is basically my wee tester. So once I've got it kind of mixed up where I want it, I'm going to wet the sky here slightly, and I want to try to avoid coming down too close to that little house or cabin or cottage or whatever it is. You can decide what you're going to throw into yours. Okay, so then I'm going to quickly drop this in. So I'm using a kind of a biggish kind of brush here. You can use a mop as well, just whatever you have in your toolkit there, so to speak. then we have some fields and stuff here. Some fencing. So I'm just going to cut around that and try to leave the some white there. So I need to get back over to this side now quickly before it dries on me. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to mix up just a slightly stronger mix of that blue there. Okay, so we're thinking in terms now of when you first lay down your wash, it's quite watery with not a lot of paint in it, and then as you go along you're getting a bit thicker. So I'm just going to drop these in like that, and they're going to be like distant trees. So again, not too much fuss. What I might do here is I might actually put a wee sun burst in the sky here. Okay, I don't know if you can see there or not, but it's as if the sun is hiding behind all these diffused clouds. Okay, see how it's just all just diffusing nicely on me there. So I'm going to pick up a wee bit more of that cobalt and a bit more burnt sienna. So I know this wee lesson, it's all about how to trace effectively for your watercolors and getting the painting on, but you know, you need to do these things in context. So that's why I often like just to go ahead and get it into a painting. I'm just going to clean that up there, it's just ran a bit too much on me. And over here as well. In fact, you know what? Happy accidents. You can just bring it on down here. Just as if there's some shadow up there. And we'll let that all come on down there. So we're going to have a tree here, quite a thick tree, so I'm going to just get rid of that hard edge there. So we're just going thicker now. So it's all about the thickness of your paint. So I'm getting into a bit of a creamy mixture here. I'm going to just drag out some wee trees and stuff. So there you go. That's the sky and the distant trees kind of blocked in. We're going to put some darker trees in here, but what I want to do now is I want to work with the little building here. Okay, because this is going to be one of our winter scenes, and we're going to put snow in later on. We want this to be quite dark, what we do here. Okay, and folks, just a wee reminder, thank you for all those who have subscribed, and that's really decent of you, and thank you for taking the time just to leave a wee comment. It's good to know that there's real people out there, human beings, just saying hi, and even where you're from. It's just lovely to hear so many people from all around the world are tuning into these kind of lessons and getting something out of them. You're always appreciated. Thank you for taking the time to do that. And thank you for taking the time, not just to subscribe, but just to hit the old like button. And if you could give it an old hype as well. This is a new thing that YouTube's doing now, that if you like somebody's work and you give it a hype, you can hype it up to 3 times a week. And that just helps to promote and push that particular video. So it's really appreciated. And you know, we're one big community here. It's not like we're trying to be selfish about it, and hoard all these techniques to yourselves. It's good to share these even with your friends and stuff and people that you're painting along with. Okay, so enough of that there. What we're going to do now is we're going to hit the, okay, so for your benefit, I am trying to stick to a limited palette here. So not everybody has a million colours, and I don't want people to feel like they need to rush out and purchase this and that and other just so as they can paint along. So if you've got a wee piece of paper of this here size, it's probably about 8 by 6. And then I cordoned it off here just to use this as my wee tester strip here. Maybe a wee bit more in the brown side there. So my figuring is if I can do this with just a couple of colours and get a decent result, then it should make it easier for you guys as well. So, and then I'm just going to cut round here. Okay, so the light's coming from behind here. It is a dark cabin, but this side here which is completely to the back of that, I'm going to do that even stronger again. So I'm going to go into more of that blue there. And this is one of those barn doors, or not a barn door, it's a, I forgot what the name of them is. It's like a half and half. You would normally find them in kind of farmhouses and stuff like that. Okay, so it doesn't have to look pretty, because this is all going to be buried in snow anyway. And then maybe cut under here, as if you can see the underneath of that roof there. We'll get a bit of brown up onto that chimney there. In fact, I'll switch to a smaller brush for this here, just for a wee bit more accuracy. So there's brown at the side and blue in shadow at the front. What I love about these wee paintings is, I mean, you can just sit and pull them out of your imagination all day long. You don't really need any source material for these. Make it up the way you would like to see it. If you could imagine just this idyllic scene and just paint that. Okay, so it's looking okay. What I'm going to do is this door, I'm going to do this, well, I was going to do the red there. Maybe I'll throw a wee bit of red into it. I'm sure you have some red in your palette. So it's a red door. If it was in the daylight, it would be quite vibrant, but because it's kind of very overcast and the sky's very snow laden. Okay, and then maybe just frame that a wee bit like that. You'll probably not even see that by the time I get the snow on it anyway. So basically, still cobalt blue, still burnt sienna are two main colours, and if I dip into something else, I'll try to let you know. But that was like a cad red there, but you could have used alizarin and that would have been fine. So what I want to do now is I'd like to get a wee bit of life into my cottages, so I can imagine there being lights on. So I'm going to mix up a bit of an orangey yellow colour here. If you don't have orange, use yellow and red. And we want to keep this nice and light. And then later on we'll probably have this reflecting onto the snow here. Okay. So if you get to this stage, don't worry, if it's not looking great, you know, it'll all come together. That's a wee bit too light looking, so I'm going to go into more of that orange there. Sometimes you just gotta step back a wee bit from what you're doing. So I'm basically just building the picture up, setting the scene as it were. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get rid of some of that pencil work. So do you see how that looks? It looks a bit more natural there. You know, when you get rid of the pencil's great for guidance, but once you don't need it any longer, you can get it off there and it'll just look so much better, I think, anyway. Maybe get rid of some of the pencil around these windows as well. That's why I like to use a soft lead when I'm sketching things in. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start concentrating on putting some trees in here. I'm basically building this picture up. You just got to remember that it'll all come together at the end. So don't lose heart. One thing I've learned over having been painting for over 30 years is that the last 10 minutes of a painting are enough to pull it round to the point that some paintings just look like an absolute disaster. It just seems there's no way of pulling it back. But see that last 10 minutes? You'll see this with any artist. Any artist who does any kind of decent work, you'll see that it's those last 10 minutes when it all comes together. So you're basically just setting the stage here. So keep the faith, you will get there. Alright, so I'm going to do these trees here. So basically, we're just using that mix again there. And it's really a case of getting the right brushes here. Because we're working quite small, we're having to use brushes that are more fitting to that. So this is a number 2. A number 2 brush. And this is my old trusty rigger. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to drag this up from the side like that. Make it a wee bit stronger actually. So I'm just going to drag this up. I remember in the early days of painting, there was many a painting that it just didn't seem to be going the way I wanted it, and there's been many a painting that I've just turned it over and started painting on the back side of the paper because I just thought I'd lost the plot, and what I discovered later on was if I had to just persevere a wee bit longer, a couple of wee tricks were just enough to turn those things right round. Of course, you know, sometimes you can push it too far as well. So I'm putting a wee bit of fence work in here. Okay, so we're getting there. We're moving along. I think what we'll do now is we'll bring down our snow here into this middle ground. I'm going to use blue for my snow here. That looks alright. I'm going to just put a wee hint. You can put either alizarin crimson in there or a wee bit of burnt sienna. Any one of them will do the job. When you're doing snow, it's a mixture of soft edges and hard edges. Okay, so if I want this to look like the snow is laid on the top and then bending in over the contour of that hill, then I can just soften that up like that and then run that down. So you can either put it hard at the top or soft. Needs another touch of blue in there. A bit darker towards the bottom of what I've just painted there. And then what we're going to do, if we want, we can go in with a damp brush and just soften up the top part of that, and then we can soften this up as well. So I want you just to be thinking about just using very simple colours like that, hard and soft when you're doing your snow. Okay, and then we're gonna come over here, pick up on that shadow we put in, and I'm coming down to the top of that fence there. I'm trying to leave little bits, sorry, not bites, little bits that are white, because when we put our snow in there, I want it to look like our snow sitting on the top of the fence. And if you happen to do this a bit stronger than what you think's necessary, you know, that's okay. Because when we start putting in the snow later on, it'll all make sense. And that's the snow that you're seeing just through the fence there. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some of this up onto the roof here. So, with a clean brush, just put a wee drop of cold water. I don't know why I'm saying cold water. It probably will be cold anyway, but clean water is what I meant. And then go back into your snow colour there. I'm going to try a wee bit of burnt sienna here with that cobalt. Just something a wee bit darker, just to try and show that there's shadow here on this side. Okay, so we're going to tackle these fences now. So again, still that kind of browny, dark bluey colour there. Nice and creamy. Hopefully that's strong enough. Yep, should be. Right. And then we're just going to imagine that you've got these posts coming down here like that. And then they're going to cross the way. But there's snow sitting on the tops of them. So with snow, you've got all these kind of contours and banks and so on. So what you want to do is you want to kind of start off soft and light at the top, and then go down hard and crispy. Sticking with that cobalt blue, and a wee touch of alizarin in there. I'm going to make up a bit of a strongish kind of colour here, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to, with some clean water, we're just going to paint along here with clean water, okay? And then we'll drop that in like that. And then I'm just going to touch that with the damp brush there just to soften it up a bit. And as we go down near these little mountains of snow here, we're getting a bit darker, and that's going to allow that to look like it's a heap of snow. And then we'll just do behind in fact, we'll paint right through the legs of the sheep here, because they're going to be black anyway. And I'm just doing a bit of dry brushwork here as well. That's our foreground. It looks nice and messy, so don't worry about that, because it's all part of the cunning plan here. It's got to put a bit of shadow and stuff in. So what I think we'll do is we'll tackle the wee farmer here. So if you're going to have a go at this at home, folks, I know some of you do like to paint along, and you could just start off see at the beginning where I have the sketch. Just copy that sketch. Try using the old tracing paper trick, artist quality tracing paper. It is quite good in terms of it's a lot more transparent, so you can see what you're laying it on top of. But I have used baking parchment paper and everything over the years. Sometimes you can get a nice whitish kind of colour that it's a bit semi-transparent. Okay, so I'm just painting in the wee farmer here, as you can see. And then we're going to paint his face. So, a bit of yellow ochre. So we're changing colours here. Oh, it's a bit dark. It's funny, you know, when you're painting people's faces in a kind of skin colour, it's always a lot stronger than what you think. And then we'll paint his hands as well. Okay, I think we're ready for the sheep, folks. The bit you've all been waiting for, those who have stayed along. Of course, you know, it's good just to, you know, it's like anything, it's good just to watch something through if you can. Get a nice cup of coffee or tea or whatever your beverage is, and just sit and watch it, let it play in the background even. And you'll find that these things they'll go into your subconscious and they'll start coming out. Okay, so I'm going to get some clean water here, and I'm going to put some yellow ochre into it. So we're going to use this yellow ochre, and we're going to also use some of this here brown stuff here. So I'm going to imagine that the light is still coming from here. So this is going to be kind of the sun hitting the tops here. Maybe do that one while I'm at it. Okay, that looks alright. And then we're going to go into this dark stuff here. And just start to throw that in there. When you get down to the underside, it is quite strong in colour. It's just drying really super fast, so I'm just getting in here with a damp brush, just trying to keep it damp there, so when I bleed this in here, it's going to be a smooth transition, and then the world's kind of straggly a wee bit. Okay, so there's a couple of things we can do, depending on what kind of shape it is. We could do these heads quite dark, quite black, and sometimes that'll stand out nicely against, you know, the snow. So we want pretty creamy colour here, not too wet. And a bit of crimson there. A bit more of that. Okay, so see the way it's quite purple. So if we fire in a bit of ochre there, kind of acts as a yellow, and well, it is yellow, it's yellow ochre, but what it does, because this is blue and this is technically a red, this alizarin crimson, the yellow ochre will neutralise it. It gives a strong, well, depends how much water in it there is, of course. It can give us a nice dark grey colour. Okay, so while we're in that dark colour there, I'm going to put the legs in. If you find me going a bit quiet through these, it's just because I just get a wee bit carried away and I'm just in the zone. Okay, what we need now is a bit of shadow. So that's our purpley colour, our cobalt, alizarin, and a wee bit of yellow ochre just to neutralise it. And let's see what that looks like. Maybe a wee bit more blue there. Just trying to get it strong enough, but not too strong. So light's coming from here, so make sure you follow the direction of the light there, and obviously there's contours here in the snow. Make sure you're following that as well there. Okay, see it's all pointing towards the sun, and now we're going to lay down some shadow for our sheep. Just had a flashback when I was goodness, I must have been about 6 years old at the time, and old enough to remember that when we were kids at school, there wasn't really any erasers, you know, readily available. I remember these real hard things. They're more like sandpaper, but I remember as a workaround we used to use bread. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember that, but used to get a bit of white bread and roll it up into a wee ball, and it actually worked as an eraser. So there you go, folks. There's a wee tip for you. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to get into our snow work. So remember, this is just the foundation. If your sheep look a wee bit quirky, that's okay. It's all just a bit of fun. You're not trying to, you know, paint some photorealistic picture here. So I'm going to get my old trusty tray. I like to keep something like this handy for all this kind of messy stuff. So what I'm doing is I'm just mixing up some very dry white paint here. I want this to be really thick, and if you remember from the other video of our snow scene, how to do all this stuff, do check that out after you've seen this one, of course. So what I'm doing is I'm just softening up the bottoms of these trees here with some of this paint to make it look like there's like been snowdrift. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get some of my gouache together. This is the fun part. So the trick here is to get this all the right kind of consistency. So give it a wee bit of water and just work it in there. If this is too thick, you'll not be able to do anything with it, and if it's too runny, it'll be over absolutely everywhere. So once you have it kind of mixed up, if you can see that, and what you want to do is get an old hog hair brush or something, right, and test it out on the side here. Okay. So I'm just flicking the brush, and this is where you'll be glad you kept those back buildings nice and dark. So what this is doing, it's giving me a fine mist, and what it does is it just softens the whole scene. Just helps to push everything back a wee bit, you know. See where it sits nice and dark, or the bits that sit nice and dark, this just sits lovely against it. Makes it nice and kind of soft and misty looking. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, that's our fine mist. What I want to do now is get a slightly bigger brush, a different kind of brush, and we're going to do a wee bit of flicking. So again, try it on the side of something. So what this does, it gives us some bigger bits. So don't overdo this, okay? It's very easy to get carried away and So just a few here and there. Okay, and I think what I'll do is I'll paint just a wee touch on the back of those sheep there, as if the snow's been falling on them. Okay, what I want to do now is just some finishing touches here. But you see the way that's just all come together there? All those dark bits have played their part. They would have looked out of place initially. So you're thinking of all these darks and how now that they're all just pulling together and working. So what I'm going to do is go into that yellow or orange. Let's go into the orange, in fact. So these are just the finishing touches. So what I want to do is I want to just, you know, put a wee bit of clean water there and then just drop that in there like that. And then what I want to do is, obviously there's somebody in the house here. We've got the lights on, so that helps. So what I want to do is I want to just get some clean water like that, and then drop a wee bit of gouache in there, maybe a wee bit of grey, and then we'll soften that up. Okay, it wouldn't be a completed winter scene without a few wee birds. Okay, just one thing left to do. So at this stage again, what you're doing is you're basically looking over your picture before you completely finish it, and you're just trying to fix anything that's standing out too much. I think the camera is making those look very, very strong. So I'm going to just soften them up. Yeah, that helps just to knock that back a bit. Okay, so folks, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this tape off and just let you all see what it looks like here. So don't forget to check out my other videos of how to do winter snow scenes. I have to say it's my favorite kind of time of year for this kind of thing anyway. I always look forward to these kind of wee scenes. So I'm just going to cut that off quickly. And there you go, folks. There's our wee snow scene. How to trace on the fly nice and quickly, and how to get it into your Christmassy snowy scene. So folks, have a wee go at that and let me know how you get on with that. And it's always good to hear from you. So until next one, keep painting and keep her lit.